Hi, this is Matt Donegan at Business Spotlight. I'm here with Dhilon. Dhilon, could you tell us who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for, please?
Sure. Well, thanks very much for having me, Matt. Really appreciate it. So my name's Dhilon, and I'm the founder and CEO of a brand called StoryLocker. StoryLocker is a platform that allows people to create their own personal podcast, either for themselves or loved one, based on their life story that they can then live on for generations. So essentially creating your own digital legacy.
Wow. What made you start the business in the first place?
Good question. So this is not my background whatsoever. My background has been hospitality for the last 15 or 20 years. And about 18 months ago, my 8-year-old son would always ask what his grandma was like. Now, unfortunately, my mum passed away at a really young age with a form of cancer with acoustic neuroma. I had some photos and videos to show him, and of course, my own memories as well. But that was pretty much about it. I've also been an avid podcast listener, so listening to like Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, and High Performance, and Fern Cotton, and that really kind of got me thinking that if my mum was still alive when she was born in East Africa, come over to the UK, how could she have recorded and documented her life story, but in today's digital format, which then can be shared for generations? And for me, not knowing anything about this space, the first thing I thought I'd do was, right, let me get my dad interviewed. So I got my dad. I found a random interviewer online and asked her to interview my dad for 90 minutes to 2 hours remotely. And I was also on that call as well. And as you can imagine, I was a complete emotional wreck listening to some of the stories
Yeah.
that my dad, especially when he was talking about his wife and my mum, unfortunately, when she passed away about 17 years ago now. But there was a huge amount of tradition, and all historic experiences that he obviously had when he was born in East Africa too, that I didn't even know about. So it was fascinating to understand his story while I was listening to him speak live. But then once that interview was completed, I got that edited, produced with the intro, the outro, the music overlay, no different to how you would listen to a podcast on Spotify, for example. So it was really, polished piece of work. And then I still remember to this day when I picked up my 8-year-old son and I played it to him in the car, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, that's granddad." I said, "Yeah, I know." And his look on his face when he was learning about his grandma by listening to his granddad was phenomenal. And that's when I think really the penny dropped for me, and said, "Okay, I think there's something in this." And that's where the
Wow.
business started and developed really.
That sounds like a great idea. Is there anybody else doing it?
There isn't anyone specifically in the UK doing it. There are variations. So you do have businesses where they'll write a book biography of somebody. So they'll match you with a ghostwriter to write your biography of your life. So essentially what we're doing, we're digitalizing for a lot of the more traditional formats and businesses and services doing in the UK at the moment. So there's no one quite doing what we're doing, but it wouldn't surprise me over the next few years. There will be competition. Excuse me, when we look at the trends over the next 5 or 10 years, podcasting is growing. So there's about 19 million listeners in the UK at the moment, and that's due to grow to about 26 in the next 3 years.
Right.
The rise of genealogy is growing, so how people want to preserve their memories,
Yeah.
but also gifting and personalized gifting will continue to grow. And I know certainly that's a trend for 2024
Yeah.
as well. So the trajectory is going in the right direction in terms of the space that we're operating, hopefully.
Wow. Okay. So you've got a huge market there. You
Yes.
you seem to be in a niche of one, which is a thing that we're a big fan of. A company being in a niche of one is a really strong position. Obviously, it means you don't fight on price.
Absolutely.
And I guess the challenge is awareness. What are you doing? Because it's a fairly early stage product. What are you doing in terms of market entry, market penetration? You've got your go-to-market plan already and fired up?
Yes, yeah, good question actually. And there's lots of ways we could have done it really. And I think firstly we had to really kind of educate the market, and we're still educating the market in terms of what we're doing and how it works in the process, because it's a relatively new product to market. So for us, it was really important in terms of driving that engagement and driving that education piece, but also then in terms of the market that we want to tap into. And there's particularly two core audiences that we wanted to look at initially. The first audience are the gifters who may want to actually gift it to their friends or family or their parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
But then there's also an audience where they actually want to leave a digital legacy for their friends and family, or family in particular or specifically, as they move on in life, as they say. So in terms of how have we started to tap into the market, we've kind of broken it down into various different verticals. So we've got like the over 50 market as well, and we've been working with insurance businesses and health businesses. We're tapping into that audience as well. We've been working with funeral parlors and directors, where they've kind of helped and raised our profile as a brand as well. We've then been tapping into the wedding market as well. So even though when we talk about the life story and recording your life story, there are also other subjects and topics that have been quite popular over the last 6 months as well, based on maybe a milestone birthday or milestone anniversary that you might want to gift a podcast to, but also to the wedding market as well. So every couple will no doubt have a photographer and a videographer at the wedding, but what better way, or what great way to record and document your love story from when you met to the moment of your wedding, by doing a pre-wedding or post-wedding podcast as well. So we're working with some great wedding platforms as well, and then really kind of just driving our communication via all of our social channels and really tapping into those specific audiences with some paid advertising, which has really started to gain that traction as well. And we're doing a little bit of influencer marketing as well. So we've got a few influencers lined up over the next few weeks that kind of resonate with our market as well, who are going to experience the product and the service and hopefully then shout about it in terms of the experience that they've had, and hopefully a positive experience. And then we've got some more strategic partnerships that we're looking at in Q1 or end of Q1 next year. So one of which is a Premiership football club, where we'll tap into their community, because they're very much community-led football club and audience, and tapping into their fan base. So fans that may have been there for 50 or 60 years. What an amazing story they probably have to tell sitting in the stands or standing in the stands. Ex-players, new players, because they've all got a story to tell as well. So we're tapping into different niches at the moment, see what's working and what's sticking. So we're still, to a certain extent, we're still very much a startup, and we're learning a lot, and also we're taking a huge amount of feedback on the back of that and evolving the product. So I'll probably say that we're in a stage where we're still trying to find exact product market fit as well.
Yeah. So in terms of, you're looking at lots of different marketplaces there. How are you kind of lining up the one that's the nailed on? I mean, there's a great book called Crossing the Chasm. You probably know it anyway, which defines being big in a small pond is the way to go. How are you deciding which is the pond that you're trying to attack?
Yeah, good question, actually. It's very much based on feedback and customer feedback, actually, and some of the partners that we're reaching out to. I think the reason why and the core proposition of building the business was based on recording and document somebody's life story that can be shared and passed down for generations. So what we're finding that the people that are tapping into the product and the service is very much based around somebody's life story, whether it's their parents or grandparents or somebody slightly older who actually wants to leave it and gift it to their children and their children, so they've got something digitally to leave. And the power of the voice is amazing. When you're listening to somebody's voice, you're listening to the emotions that they're going through, so you really feel that you're sitting with them. Imagine a great grandchild not ever meeting their grandparents or granddad or grandma, but by listening to their podcast, it almost feels like they're sitting next to them, learning about their life, which is phenomenal, really. So that's definitely, helped us, drive the niche and the focus towards life stories. But we're also open that we know there are other opportunities as well. But like you said, we don't want to dilute ourselves, and it's very much focusing on, customer feedback and demand as well. But then we'll obviously see how we evolve the other products and topics as well.
Absolutely. And how long have you been pushing out into the marketplace then?
Well, officially, I would say probably the summer of this year. So I've been developing the product and the proposition for about 18 months. And that's purely the fact that I knew nothing about this space. My background has been hospitality as a marketeer. I'm a marketeer by trade. So going into this space almost naively probably wasn't a bad thing, actually, because it was almost like there are no challenges. Why can't this happen? So that's why I started to build relationships with editing and production teams, interviewers. We've got a nice portfolio of interviewers who've got professional backgrounds in the media and journalism, which is fantastic. So and also a lot of testing and trialing as well, trialing and testing, just to make sure from a customer journey perspective, from start to finish has got to be as slick as possible, really, because customers can't always be always not forgiving, unfortunately. So
yeah, well, it's an important thing, and you're taking the listener through an emotional journey. So imagine all users in this are going to be emotionally attached to the product that you're going to deliver. So
absolutely.
that's a very understandable perspective, and I suppose is that one of the challenges? Is that one of the main challenges you have in developing the business? Is it getting that feedback from the users and adapting the product, or is it the amount of time? Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think the biggest challenge that we've had is almost like articulating, and promoting and creating that communication. Basically, that it's very much an emotionally led product and emotionally led service. But how you get that across digitally in our communications is not always easy, because to a certain extent you want to try and pull on the heartstrings, but at the same time you've got to do it in a way that it resonates with our audience as well. So with obviously having our shop window, i.e. our website and our social channels, to try and get that emotionally led content out there has been a bit of a challenge to try and get people to resonate with it, because it's really the end benefit is what we're trying to, and I don't like the word sell, but what we're trying to give people that imagine, your grandchildren or, their children in 10, 50, 20, 30 years, imagine them having the ability to listen to your voice and your story. So it's very much about how do we position that and get people to buy into that, essentially the end product, the end benefit of what we're doing. And that's where we have slight challenges and people asking how does it actually work as well, because it is slightly a technical product as well. So we just need to try and make sure that people are aware that you don't have to be technical savvy whatsoever. We do everything for you, and we do all the heavy lifting from start to finish as well.
Okay, so when I look at the challenges in most businesses, well, not just myself, but everybody, when they look at the challenges in business, they tend to fall into one of three buckets, or sometimes all three. But
Sure.
it's usually around time, the amount of time that you're spending delivering the business.
Yeah.
Team, the people around you who are delivering it, are they all fired up and pointing in the right direction? And money, how's revenue generation and profit. Out of all the tensions that you currently have in putting a product into market,
Sure.
which of those three is your biggest pain point?
At the moment, and if I was to prioritize them, would be time, and purely the fact that I have a day job as well, and it's a full-time day job, and it's quite a demanding day job as well. I've been quite lucky in the fact that the founders of that business have been absolutely supportive of what I'm doing, in terms of my business that I've launched with Story Locker. They even give me access to their office over the weekends as well. So it's been fantastic. And we've been able to mutually agree on an exit for me middle of next year, which I will then focus on Story Locker full time basically as well, which is fantastic. And if I was to give anyone a piece of advice where they've got the urge or they've got the burning fire or the fire in the belly to start up their own business, but they're in a current job, just be open and honest with them. You'll be surprised how much they want to encourage you, and see how it make it work for both businesses, for you, not only your business but for their business as well, and vice versa. And that's really helped me, and I couldn't fault the way they've kind of managed that process for me, to be honest with you.
That's fantastic. You're getting that support. It's quite unusual for a founder to stay in their day job. People often abandon what they're doing and throw themselves into it. It's quite rare, but there are exceptions. I mean, no doubt you know about Phil Knight, wrote Shoe Dog, obviously the guy behind Nike, and Phil Knight did this as well. So you're not doing something that's completely out of kilter, but it's fairly unusual.
Yes, no, it is, and I think obviously I have responsibilities, like we all have bills to pay, and I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old, and obviously my wife as well. So I've got to make sure that they have a roof over their head as well. At the same token, I want to live my dream out as well, and fundamentally it's a partnership in itself. So even though I have the support from my current company, the support from the family and the wife is invaluable, because you can't do it all otherwise. So you've got to make sure that the family are on board with what you were looking to achieve as well. Otherwise, it will never happen. So I'm lucky in the fact that I have got supporting wife. Don't get me wrong, we have our challenges like any relationship does, as well. But ultimately, I'm doing it for them. You know, sometimes they find it difficult to see that when, you know, I'm working 6.5 days a week or 6 days a week. The time I do spend with them, I make sure it's fine, but it's just trying to get that balance, you know, as well, really. If it wasn't for my day job, I may be 6 months or 9 months ahead of my journey with Story Locker, but I'm just doing it in a more sensible and calculated way.
Yeah, sensible, calculated, and making sure that you've got your life around you, because you know business should serve your life, not the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Uh,
completely.
that's an important thing. I think many business owners out there have experienced the pain of not spending enough time with their friends and family when the kids are growing up as they develop a business. So you know, it's a tough one. It's a tough thing to balance.
It is. Yeah, I've made the number of sacrifices I've had to make this year. You know, going to family events, you know, holidays, birthdays. You know, so you know you have to make sacrifices if you really want to, you know, give it your best shot, really.
Yeah. So both with time and money, there's this thing where you can either spend time, you can waste time, or you can invest time. And the same with money, you know, it's spend, invest, and waste. And it sounds like you're investing. You're in the investing stage at the moment. Is that
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I'll totally agree with that. Really, you know, investing, you know, my time. Obviously, you know, commercially from a capital perspective, I've invested cash into the business. So everything up until now is come out of, you know, savings. Obviously, you know, it helps that you've got, you know, a dad that's been able to help me, you know, on my journey as well, and be extremely supportive of that,
Mm-hmm.
as well. But you know, early part of next year, I'll then start my fundraising round, to really kind of try and scale the growth, to try and really capitalize on first mover advantage. Because even though we are generating revenue, which is great, I want to see if we can try and grow a lot more quicker to market, purely the fact that, you know, there will be other competitors, you know, that will come out, you know, at some point next year, I assume.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that's going to be, yeah. If you're in a niche of one at the moment, and it really
Yeah,
does seem like that you are, then no market is worth is worth entering if it's not worth fighting for. So you will
yes.
get competition, and I'm sure you've already considered about how you're going to push that competition, about how you're going to just maintain that niche. Um, are you on track for your growth goals?
Yes, I'll probably say, well, I'll be completely transparent, probably slightly behind, but that's purely the fact that based on the amount of time I've wanted to spend on the business. But I think with any new startup, you know, I think it's never ever a straight road.
No.
And I think it's the case of you having to have the, you know, the resilience, really, and the belief and the faith that if one thing doesn't work, you know, try something else, or slightly pivot, and whatever the case may be. So I think what I've learned, that okay, we may not be where we want to be, you know, in this current market, but in 6 months, you know, so I always make sure that we've got milestones, and every 3 months we have milestones as well. Of course, every month we'll check in every week, and daily I'm checking in on basically how the business is running,
Yeah.
to make sure we achieve our goals. So slightly behind, but that's not phased me by any means, really, because I know what the next 3 to 6 to 9 months look like, as well.
Yeah. And you've got a lot of discovery to go on.
Absolutely.
Often with startups, you enter a market doing one thing, and then you know you test and measure the marketplace. You find there's a slightly different opening. You know, pivots
Absolutely.
happen all the time as long as you don't turn into a roundabout.
Of course.
It can be a good
Yeah.
thing. It's often the thing that drives growth in a business. And that's entirely the right thing to do. Learn, test, and learn. And no doubt you've been reading Lean Startup. That's you
Yeah.
know, that's a wonderful book I recommend to all businesses. It's not just for technology businesses, of course. It's you could use it in any single industry that you're in. So, what's been your biggest lesson since you started the business?
That's a good question, that is. Um, don't rely on people. If you want to do something, do it yourself. You know, if people are going to date, I think you've got to give, you know, some level of like faith, I think, to be honest, or leap of faith to a certain extent, basically. But I think if you want to get something done, do it yourself. It's probably my best learning. I think, really. I think, you know, rather than having to wait, you know, I think sometimes being on your own, you're a lot more nimble, a lot more agile. You can make things a lot more quicker. And I think, yeah, sometimes if you want to do something, just do it yourself, I think.
Okay. Okay. Nice piece of advice there.
My biggest learning.
Okay. And so if you were going to go back and see your 18-year-old self, what's the, aside of doing it yourself, what would you tell them to do? What would your little pearl of wisdom be? What's gonna leave them with?
Speak to as many people as you can. You know, don't be afraid. Try everything. Don't hesitate. You have nothing to lose. You know, I think when I was at that age, I was slightly shy, and it took me a little while to get out of my shell. But I would suggest anyone at that age, talk to as many people as you can and be almost like a sponge and absorb everything, irrelevant of whether it's your interest or not. Absorb as much information as you can.
Fantastic. So is there any plans or anything that you're hatching at the moment that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yes. So obviously we're going into the Christmas period, which is a very busy period for us, which is great because Story Locker could be a great, you know, gift. But going into Q1 and Q2 of next year, obviously it's an exciting time for me personally as I exit my day job at the end of June, which then gives me real focus for Story Locker after 5 years of being in that role. I'll start my fundraising journey at the beginning of January as well. So that I'm sure will be eventful and challenging at times, no doubt, yes. As well. But with some of the kind of core strategic partnerships that we've got lined up with, as I mentioned and alluded to earlier, an amazing Premiership football club and also one of the mainstream TV channels as well who wants to work with us, which is fantastic.
Wow, that's
with some really, really exciting stuff next year. And then hopefully I'll have to then start building the team out. So I'm thankful that I have a non-exec who is not your typical non-exec. She's very in the trenches with me side by side, which is great. And then obviously my head of talent and head of production as well. So we've got a nice close-knit team. Yes. Hopefully we'll look to start building that out next year as well. So yeah, exciting time, daunting, don't get me wrong. You know, I'm sure there'll be lots of curveballs, but how you, I think, you know, tackle those curveballs really and not let you kind of phase you is I think probably the most important thing.
Yeah, that sounds great. So look, thanks so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed talking to you and learning all about your business, or some about your business. What's the URL of the business? Can you tell me that?
Sure, it's www.storylocker.co.uk.
Storylocker.co.uk. Are you going to grab a worldwide domain there as well?
I tried to, but it was taken, unfortunately. So I am chipping away at that. That's the ideal scenario. So I am chipping away at that at the moment.
Perfect. I'm sure you'll get that one way, shape or form. So look, thanks. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you. I'm really looking forward to seeing how your business journey progresses, catching up over the next few months and seeing how you're going to deliver what sounds like an absolutely fantastic business with a huge potential, and get on your business journey. So thank you, Dhilon. It's been a real pleasure.
No problem at all. Really appreciate the opportunity, Matt, and fantastic talking to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.